Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdicus Dave, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
They're Ted. How are
What's
you
up,
doing
my
this
man?
fine and lovely? How are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a long day, but I'm here. I'm ready to rock and roll with some of my favorite peeps out there in Nerdland. So,
Yeah, I was actually looking forward to the week. Usually it's, oh man, the weekends are awesome and this and that. But, totally, glimpse into Ted's life. My son's scout troop, they're going Eagle Scout crazy right now with,
wait a minute. Hold on 1 second. First of all, I just want to say it totally relates to the topic.
okay.
How to be a good guy, but in real life. Go ahead, Ted.
That is true. So my son's scout troop, they are, posting Eagle Scout projects left and right. And, I do need to be a good guy, not only, to be helpful, but to, show my son that we as a family can all go out and help. It's not just here, you go help, we'll drop you off. We'll put our feet up and eat bonbons. No, we went out and we busted our butts this weekend. So I spent 3 hours on Saturday, cleaning gravestones at the local. Well, actually, more local to you than to me.
Yeah.
But at the Veterans Cemetery, as that was that Scouts Eagle project, and then the following morning we got up and we were erecting, a flagpole and cleaning very overgrown and messy gardens. It doesn't sound like it's all that much, but I'm not as young as I used to be, and my body is like, yeah, you need to take some time off. So yeah.
You got to write Ted's guide to playing D&D like an Eagle Scout.
It is what it is, but I still feel it's the right thing to do. Still say that, should go out and be helpful, go out and do those things to, show the kids, hey, this is going to happen. And tell you, I definitely was outworking a lot of the kids who were there because they're like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, well, I only have so much time that I can give to this. I'm going to give it my all, and that's just what happens.
It's just what you do when you're an Eagle Scout.
That's true.
That and
But
tell everybody that you're an Eagle Scout and make sure everybody knows.
I've said it on this channel more than enough times. I don't need to pimp it every single time. But as you brought up, tonight's topic is about the good guys. Um, so there's definitely a lot of things to talk about when dealing with good guys. And as Dave has already thrown in the chat, we have a product called the Bestiary of Benevolent Monsters. So if you're looking for some good guys that don't look like a typical, humanoid, the Bestiary of Benevolent Monsters might just happen to be something that you can use at your table. So go check it out. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean we did that because we didn't feel like there's enough good monsters out there. Um, the problem is like the project code name or working title was Good Monsters for so long. I'm like, I never know what it's actually called, and I think I actually came up with that name. But I'm like, what is the name of that product? I can never remember it. I mean, to that effect, I just went over to D&D Beyond and sorted by all the good monsters, and there's only 161 over there, and I think there's like over 1,800 monsters.
I know there's definitely over 1,000. 1,800 definitely sounds, not out of the realm of possibility.
I don't know.
I
Did
do.
we do poisons together, or did I do poisons with Doug?
I think you did poisons with Doug.
Yeah. So like, I pulled up like all the monsters that had poison resistance immunities and fire
Uh-huh.
resistance immunities. So I was like, well, which one has more?
Right.
I was curious, and so I'm like, and then I was like, well, to really kind of get like a bird's eye view of what's going on here, I was like, well, let me look at like how many monsters are there total. So it wasn't that long ago that I actually pulled up all those stats to kind of see.
Yeah, I had
Um,
listened to that chat. You guys had a lot of really great, viewpoints on poisons and all that stuff. So if you're out there in the chat, watching, live or later, and you didn't watch Dave and Doug talk about poisons, it was definitely a very informative chat. So I would check that out.
so tech and motorcycles, thanks vets, appreciate it. They love seeing their friends resting in place cleaned up.
Yeah, Aaron's a great guy. And as always, thank you for your service. Aaron for Tekken Motorcycles is been a patron for a while, and he has actually returned home from his tour overseas. So
Awesome. Yeah, well, because I remember Tekken Motorcycles would be a regular in the chat before, and then overseas and stuff can kind of put a damper on that. So there's a bunch of good monsters, and sometimes I feel like GMs and players kind of like have trouble interacting with them and using them in their games, because it's like, well, what do we do with this thing that's good and our players are good and we're not fighting them, right? It's not combat. How do we use these things? But I want to say there's like a couple things to take into consideration. We can have conflict without combat, and we can create tension in a scene or encounter, using any kind of monster or NPC, but even good ones. And the resolution doesn't have to be physical violence. But that being said, like sometimes that happens as well. Like, you could both be on the perceived right side, and let's face it, you can never have a comic book team up without them fighting each other first. It's like it's the rules of comic book team ups.
So, like when you're looking at the possibility of combat with good guys, figure out what your table does in regards to dealing subdual damage. Some say that you can choose when you swing an attack or cast a spell whether or not you're dealing subdual, and unless you're doing casting spells that have a literal death effect like disintegrate, it's
that's actually a misuse of the rules. Like, I think because the actual rule is if you attack someone within 5 feet of you, it might even be specifically a melee attack, you can choose to do subdual damage. And I think it might even specify it has to be with a weapon. But I think people have read that, and I know we have. Like, we read that, and it's somewhere along the line we got it twisted, and we expanded to you can just do subdual damage if you want.
Well, I know a lot of GMs do a lot of different things, and there are so many house rules that, all right, I apologize if I am misquoting the rules, but every GM is going to decide how they want to do it, and I think if that is the role, then sure, that makes a lot of sense. I honestly, as a GM, I don't know how you can choose to subdually knock someone out with a fireball, but I'm also a GM that I want to encourage heroes. So if a GM says, well, I'm going to have it explode this way, and the damage is I'm just knocking the oxygen out of the area and they might get knocked out. Sure, that works.
It definitely works for lightning attacks. You're just tasing them. Don't tase me, bro.
So I don't really care. If you want to say I'm trying not to kill, great. We'll make it work somehow, some way, because it's just not that important. If you're using necrotic damage, disintegration, that kind of stuff, like those to me don't sound very, I'm gonna be nice with it.
Yeah, disintegration definitely sounds like a particular bounty hunter.
But outside of knocking things out, if you're going to use good guys and you want to use those 160 monsters that are good guys, like the amazing gold dragon that is sitting on my shelf over there, it's definitely being queued up for an upcoming session. Sure, there are ways to
wait a minute, Ted. Speaking of things sitting on shelves, what's behind you?
You're talking about this guy here?
Yeah.
So this is the creature creation, the not displacer beast. This is Donna, and I can bend light and hide where I am. This is the from creature creation from RPG Squeeze. This is their what do you call it? Their plush line of things. I just keep changing them out.
That looks really good. Did you just put that? Was that up there earlier today?
Yeah.
I just noticed it now. It must be because there's only the 2 boxes.
Yeah, I get a new one every month. I bought the whole year's worth. You know, so there's a whole box of stuff over there. So I try to change out the animals every so often. Fun
Ooh,
things to change on the shelf.
it looks good.
Yeah.
Like definitely, I can see players like if you put that on the table, be like, "Here's the monster. It looks like this." I can definitely see some players be trying to befriend that and take that home with them.
You know me and Displacer Beast, so
It's a refractor beast.
most people call it a phase cat, I think.
Yeah, you know what? It was funny because I got my son the baby bestiary for
Hmm.
his birthday. So like common like D&D monsters, he started calling them by like the Bobo brand name just because like that's how he learned them.
Yeah, my baby bestiary is over near my other computer.
Because I think like they had to fight. They were fighting a couple drow and displacer beasts, and then he was like, I described them. He's like, they're face cats or whatever it was called in that particular book.
Um, but getting back on topic of using those good monsters, you could have them mind controlled, you could have them diseased, you could have some other kind of condition, or as David brought up, earlier, is you could both be looking at something from a particular vantage point that seems like you're both acting in what is the right and proper thing to do, but perhaps each of you has a piece of evidence missing. Perhaps each of you are looking at it from a different perspective that's not wholly wrong, but is also not wholly right. So it gives you the option, it gives you the ability to have both of you get to a point, and it could result in combat, and one of you flee or one of you die, who knows? Or it could be, there's conflict, and the conflict stops when one of you says, look, we need to talk this out. And that's when you give each other all of the evidence you have, and most of what you have is right, but there's a piece that you have that's wrong, and a piece that they have that's wrong, and now we can come to more of a peaceful resolution, because now all the cards are on the table.
Also, you can just be good people and just not agree. Like
That is true.
a civil, as um, maybe in a frontier, there's settlers trying to settle, and the gold dragon's like, "Cool, you can, but you're going to have to pay taxes. This is my kingdom. This is my territory." And in their mind, they're absolutely right. They were there first. They've lived there for 1,000 years. Everything it can see from its mountaintop, it is claimed. And you are now within those borders, so you got to pay up, or else it's going to try and drive you out. And they're like, heck no, we're not paying that. You're a monster. And then, then next thing you know, the PCs are being called up and, like, hey, there's a dragon we need slain.
And that's exactly how things can go. It's crazy. When I look at the vast amount of dragon minis that I have, and the very few dragons that I've actually put on the flipping table, it's very disproportionate. And I got a gold dragon mini that was recently released from the Pathfinder line. I forget which one, but it's an amazing gold dragon sculpt. And I'm like, all right, I've got to find the time to put this on the table. And I just began work of, all right, how can I do this?
Yeah. I also like, like you said, there can be things where you're using the good monster and or good NPC, and there's something wrong with them, and it's not, it's beyond their ability to control. Like we did one of these live chats, and possession was one of the things, which would also be a great thing to stack with this, right? Like same gold dragon possessed by a demon, a ghost, something. Its actions aren't its own, and even cooler is if you can figure out how to introduce and foreshadow that in your game so that your players figure out that, oh, this is a this is a good creature. It's one of our fellow good guys, but they're not acting in accordance with what's normal. So that then maybe they can find out that there's something wrong with it, that it's possessed. And now their job got even harder because now they have to try and defeat it without killing them. and driving off this other entity. And I also think it's cool for like that Voltron style encounter where, oh look, you have to fight a full on battle with a gold dragon, until you get to the point where you can exercise this creature out of it.
And then
And
you got to
then you
fight the
have the gold dragon just go unconscious, right? And then they have to fight the thing and they get out of it.
and what happens if somehow the exorcism doesn't go the way you want and somehow it goes into a player. Now you got to fight for one of the fallen players or fellow players. So it can be incredibly challenging and twist the combat in new and interesting ways. But yeah, the Voltron style can be a lot of fun if done
Or
correctly.
or even like the idea of maybe there's a faction that is trying to get a hold of a holy relic or object that the players actually need to complete their quest, but it just so happens that this order has come upon it around the same time and it belongs to their order, so they want to put it back where it belongs. But really bad things are going to happen if the players can't get a hold of that thing. So that puts them in direct conflict with this order, and they're like, no, if you don't belong to our order, you can't use this thing. That's sacrilege. And in their mind, what they're doing the right thing, but in the player's mind, they're doing the right thing because they want to stop some horrible thing from happening.
Of course.
So what do? If you can't negotiate over it and you have to take it by force. So now that pits you against the good guys. There's no matter which side wins, someone's going to have to lose, and in theory, the good guys have lost.
Yep. As this is a very bizarre conversation, but again, my daughter is 9, so bear with it.
Wait a minute, is she gonna be one of the good guys or the bad guys?
Oh no, she was talking about doing thumb war against yourself. And I'm like, where are you going with this? She's like, well, if you do it, then you always win. I'm like, but you also always lose. So it's one of those things that if the good guys are fighting the good guys are going to win, and the good guys are going to lose. No matter who wins, a good guy loses, and there's going to be problems, and that often can lead to further complications down the road. Perhaps you get the item, the party gets the item, does the thing, stops the evil from happening, and is still good enough to return said thing. They could still be ousted of, like, you can't come to this city anymore. You have tainted this relic. We wish nothing to do with you. And that's the best possible case scenario that I see.
Yeah, Nerdator Doug also brings up a good point. I often run into situations where players are suspicious of good guys. I mean, the moon rises. Like, I threw in that village of mentalists, and you guys were like, these guys are definitely up to no good.
Yeah, we were definitely suspicious the entire time there. I'm like, we're just waiting for the shoe to drop. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're all right. Where's the bad thing? Where's the bad thing?
But that's why, as a GM, you got to make sure you throw in things where that doesn't happen, right? So the GM will start to trust like some of the stuff that you do. I mean, 'cause this way it makes it so much better when you do betray them.
Of
But
course. I mean that's part of what this game is about. Is
uh,
you can't walk around being suspicious of everyone. If the cards look right, then you just you move in. If things look a little off, then you be a little suspicious, and then you see how things go, and suspicion can rise and fall. And I mean, especially when you're talking about the post-apocalyptic game that we were playing, everything needs to be
yeah,
move cautiously. If people are a little too friendly, you have to ask why. Like,
I
you
think our
know
home game is less suspicious though. Like the game that you run,
mhm.
I don't think like I don't feel like that group spends a lot of time like, oh, we can't trust this or
I don't think there's that level. I don't know if it's the style of game that I tend to run, or whether it's that group of players. Um, yeah, I mean, there are definitely layers of intrigue and whatnot that I throw out there that sometimes they're picked up on and sometimes not. But just like yourself, I throw out, plot threads and see what winds up getting picked up on, and the things that fall to the wayside, well, I'm just not going to write any more material on that. And by material, I mean, the typical little bit of sentences that I write beforehand.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the last game you've run was rife with suspicion.
Well, I mean, you guys have entered into a very Fey world. You're bordering in the Fey
No, no,
wild.
no, not that game. The
Oh,
streamed game, where it's like the Who Done It.
well, yeah, well, that's absolutely, like, I needed there to be so much suspicion that you didn't know. Now, I didn't want it to be like, oh, here's the obvious answer right from the get go. Um, I wanted there to be enough things to keep you guys kind of guessing and moving throughout the whole game, and um, you know, it was definitely a new experience for me, and I'm glad that it was met with the enjoyment and success that it was. So who knows? Maybe I'll do some more mysteries in the future. Who
Also,
knows?
too, like I wholly suggest folks that you use alignments with a grain of salt, right? When it comes to all the different monsters and stuff, because some of the more interesting NPCs that I've introduced in my games have been just like regular monsters, where I didn't worry about their alignments or how they're supposed to act because I stuck them in a different role and let the players encounter them, that way. So it's a way to give the players a way to interact with some of these creatures in the world that normally they would just fight with, but instead they get to have social encounters instead of combat encounters.
Unless you're talking about, like, oh, I want to throw a good Tarask in there. I think most things have the ability to have their natures subverted, twisted, or just be like, nope, I'm different
Ted, I
than
think you
all the
just
others.
described Godzilla.
Um, the Tarask is supposed to be, this insatiable, beast of destruction. So he wakes up, he goes and destroys until he doesn't, and then he goes back to sleep. That's the way it's supposed to work. So I don't think there's any point in having a Tarask that is out to do anything good, because there's nothing
I feel like
within.
you just described this toddler.
I don't think you can equate the Tarask to a toddler.
Yeah, but maybe if that toddler was like 300 feet tall.
But when you look at the other side, there was plenty of stories of angels who are not working within the best interest, and doing deeds that are far from good, all for whatever their prescribed mission is, regardless of which faith or gods that you're tying to in this fantasy world. You can definitely go in that direction. I think it's a little bit harder to have a good demon, but it's certainly possible to have someone who's like, hey, i'm I'm not being good because that's their alignment,
Yeah.
but whatever objective that they're trying to do, there's a reason for it, and it's going to profit them in whatever way they need it to somewhere down the line. So I think that that's a good way to kind of play with things. So I agree with you, Dave, that taking the alignments and turning them on their sides, or just getting rid of them, and having the use of something outside the realm of the way it normally would be, can be a lot of fun.
The when you mentioned the good demon, it just made me think of Chauncey.
Oh yeah, that's a great character.
So which is a demon from Dresden Files, and he would summon him for a while, and then he was kind of like, he's okay as far as demons go, until like his true nature is actually revealed, that he just been suppressing because he's trying to run the long con.
Yep. Yeah, it was that was a great character. I mean, the book series has got some ways to go, so I'm hoping that we see more of him, but we have not heard that name in quite a long
Yeah,
time.
it feels a bit done, outgrown, but who knows what'll happen? You
Who
come back
knows?
as somebody's imp. Um,
So it's 8:25. So I will throw out there that we are now, or this is the first Monday of the month, and for those of you who have been around for quite a while, you know that's the time that we announce the giveaway and the fan game as to who gets what and all that jazz. So I don't know if you want me to get into that now or do that in a little bit.
yeah, right. I got one thought because you had
Sure.
mentioned angels. I just
Mhm.
want to say for my fellow supernatural fans out there, everybody knows angels are dicks. So you jump into that. What do you got for us, Ted?
All right. So for starters, uh, Dave, this is your month to game with the fans, and you usually pick like 2 o'clock on the last Sunday of
Yep,
the month.
that is
Uh,
correct. I already get. I put it on my calendar for the 30th at 2 p.m.
all right. So the winners, or the people who have been selected for that, which Dave will email, and usually it's the first five to respond. We've got James Hanson, Stephen Wilkinson, Jacob Ham, David Scott, Anthony Dunn, Lazarus Moonmark, Renee Riano, Maya Rose, Rich Schwartz, and Pete Gust. And I apologize if I mispronounced any of your names, but I gotta say Lazarus Moonmark. That sounds like a pretty awesome name. Don't know if it's legit or not, but it sounds cool. And then reaching over here into the box, this is what is being given away. Uh, and this is going to George Hanlon. I will probably send you out an email either this evening or tomorrow. So we've got one of the giant metal D20s from Easy Roller Dice.
Yep, roll it or put it in a sling or a slingshot and use it for home defense.
So
Whatever,
it's
whatever you want.
gunmetal gray with the cool blue lighting. We've got one of the little turn dial counters from TNL Laserworks.
For tracking all your numerical needs.
Copy of North Road from Quest Givers. We've got a stack of mini adventures from Goodman Games. From the aforementioned Creature Curation, we've got a gelatinous cube pin.
Ooh.
Gary Con dice. More Creature Curations with Atmar's cartography. And it's still coming. A stack of books. So, Heroes Feast, the Dungeon Master Screen Wilderness Kit, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and Opalon Rising, the role-playing game. The Opalon Rising, the Player's Handbook.
So what do we got there? 3 official Wizards of the Coast products and a RPG. Who puts out that other book?
The Opalon Rising.
Yeah.
This has been sitting on the shelf for quite a while. This is Deadly Demon Games LLC.
Nice. So that's a pretty good haul there, Ted.
That is indeed. George Hanlon, I will be in touch with you to get that shipped out to you post haste. All I need is an address, and off it goes. And then for next month, as I had promised last month, I've already curated this, and there might be more. This size box here has many minis off of that shelf that I can get into here before that is what will ship. So all of this bag is a collection of Reaper and effing cool minis, all blister packed and ready to go. This is easily probably $30 to $40 worth of minis here. And it would just take too much time to try and go through all of that. So I'll grab some of the big ones from the box. We've got a Roper. We have got a Baylor.
Are those all WizKids?
And these are all WizKids, yeah. We've got a Weavern. We've got an Ogre Zombie.
Ooh,
And there's at least another half a dozen to a dozen of the small blister packs, some painted, some unpainted. And like I said, by the time, once I have the the winner selected for this, I am going to jam pack this box with as many minis off of the shelf to try and clear some space as I can. And that'll be announced, first Monday in June as to who gets that stuff.
Crazy Ted, everything must go.
The shelf is sadly, well, I don't know if it's sadly, but it's growing faster than it's then I'm getting rid of it. So I'm trying to clean house, trying to get some stuff going.
So sign up for the Patreon, sign up for the newsletter. We're gonna randomize a bunch of names, and Ted will pull a name out of a virtual hat, and all that stuff will go to that person.
But so we like giving stuff away. People send us stuff, and we like to be able to get it out there into all of your hands so that you can use it.
Ted is like a stuff magnet. The stuff just keeps rolling in.
Well, we have some good relationships with a lot of the cool companies that are out there, and I can't hold on to everything. My house is only so big, so small. However, so yeah.
Have you considered getting a warehouse?
I've thought about
it. But instead, we're going to give you fine nerds a bunch of minis. And the last one, a bunch of Dyson books. That's a pretty good haul.
Yeah, these things are quite weighty.
Yeah, I know. They got nice heft to them. They feel good. Like if you definitely wanted to have something to throw at somebody, that's it. But only if you don't like them.
If you're looking for the apocalypse, something that you can throw and kill a zombie if you headshot them, these are not so bad.
Yeah, you could definitely stick that on a wall.
But getting back to the topic of good guys, there's so many things that are out there in the aforementioned good monsters that Dave brought up, as well as the bestiary that Nerdarchy has got over on our store. There are times where the party needs something, whether it be something to role play with, something to help them lick their wounds after a really tough fight, something to aid them with the correct information when the dice rolls are just not going their way, and you just like, look, I'm not able to figure this, they're not able to figure this out, and you can't just spoon feed them the answer. Giving them an NPC that can help guide them, that can all be something that's a worthwhile thing to do. Dave put the link back in the chat. If you have not gotten our bestiary, it's definitely a fun product. But having these monsters, these NPCs, these good guys come in to help out with whatever it is that they need, sometimes it's something that's helpful and keeps the story moving, which is the important part. Is you don't want players getting bored at the table like, well, we can't figure this out. Oh well, I guess we're just stuck.
It can also be a great way to do some world building, or not do world building, but reveal world building to your players and lure to your campaign setting instead of just like info dumping on them. By introducing these NPCs that may have actually taken place in some of the histories or been involved or know information, you can make it more interactive. So it's not just you dumping it all over the players. Hopefully, like you can give them information via them leading you with questions, right? So that it's not just all of you just vomiting all over them with your cool world building lore, but instead, like, things in the campaign has caused the players to go seek out these NPCs and ask them the questions, and they want to know the lore because it's relevant to what they're doing.
And the great part about having the leading questions is that process of, well, once they've gotten the relevant piece of information, it's still an NPC that's there. It's not like, oh, you found a scrap of parchment that has exactly the answer you're looking for, and that's it, and you move on. You can then find out, or the players can then find out other things from said NPC. And as they inquire more, it's telling of who that particular character is. What are their goals with this conversation? And then you can loop the extra information that they're asking about into the rest of the story or into later in the story as need be.
So what do you what is some of the favorite like good NPCs that you've introduced into your games? You have that one that like stands above the rest.
Well, the I really enjoyed the seer from my Narcitus game. I don't know if you remember going across
The
the
guy that had all
waters.
the stuff.
No, not the dude in the treasury. The guy who had all the shrines on the island.
Yeah,
Okay.
he had a lot
Um,
of stuff too.
I don't remember the stuff as much. But I enjoyed that character, and like I don't know whether it was noted or memorable to you guys, but I actually uh, kind of mirrored him off of a character from a TV show because I saw that was potentially where that character was going. And then as he continued watching the show, he definitely did not go in that story arc.
They failed you.
Well, and it's fine, but I mean, I was inspired, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna do what I thought this guy was gonna do. Um, so I actually spent time, which I don't usually do, working on the voice for the character.
Which TV show was that?
I was Floki from Vikings,
Yeah.
so I occasionally like to play around with voices, and I don't do many, but I was happy with that one.
When the inspiration strikes, man, you just got to go with it.
Indeed. How about you? Do you have anything that stands out?
Oh, man, I don't know. Like, I always like I like using like weird NPCs. And I don't know if they necessarily like, they tend to live in the margins of gray more so. Like I really enjoyed like the Gentleman Jack character.
Hmm. The
Um,
Grick, right? The Grick with a monocle.
yeah, Grell.
Oh, Grill. Sorry.
Although the a Grick with the monocle would be terrifying.
Yeah, my D&D brain occasionally screws up Grick and Grell. I mean, they're both weird creatures with tentacles and beaks, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
In the mini terrain domain, the Dawnbringers, we have, and we're actually on, we're on mission to try and rescue him, but we've got Victor the Spectator,
Uh,
uh, who is like bound to a ship. The ship's kind of broken, so I don't know what that means for him now. But like he was bound to service for 100 years, so like didn't matter who he was,
yeah.
all he cared about was I'm in charge of the ship. I don't leave this ship. Um, to my recollection, he's currently stuck in a force cage. So we'll see whether we can free him before the end of season 5 or not. But I definitely dig that dude. I love monsters that have been turned into good guys because going back to what we said, it's kind
Yeah.
of defying their nature and it makes them interesting because it's like, well, what is the story here? Why is this thing acting against the way it would normally do so?
I also kind of enjoyed Murphy McCrystaltop as well,
Oh, yes.
who was a Nothic that was basically grown to giant proportions and had a bunch of like purple crystals protruding down his spine. Um,
I viewed it as like, at every joint and, he was like turned inside out and then made into crystal. So he was very bizarre looking.
he was a little special and different. But I just like Nothics to begin with, although they're technically very kind of evil.
Mhm.
But they have like really good lore to them.
They do.
So I think they make really interesting NPCs, and even the bad guys can be good from time to time. It just depends on what side of the conflict the particular conflict you're on. Right. And besides, the victors write the history anyway. So
That is true. You get to decide, what it looks like. So don't be afraid to use monsters as a good guy. Don't be afraid to kind of turn things on their sides and be like, all right, this is how things are going to go. Uh, when you look at my Dungeons and Delvings game, you really didn't know who were the good guys and who were the bad guys, other than within the group. And even within the group, there were definitely some decisions of like, okay, your character Enzo was like right from the beginning of like, all right, we can play dirty, right? And Burke was absolutely against that.
Yeah, yeah.
We had Tabitha,
Only
who,
mildly so. He just wanted to give some of the competitors diarrhea. That was it.
then you had Tabitha, who had this mysterious background that like even she doesn't know, and we really didn't get too far or too deep into any of that, just beyond how she died, and things might get to be revealed when we get to a season two. But sometimes it can be fun to have the lines blurred. Sometimes it can be fun to question, are they a good guy, or are they not a good guy?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can't wait till we go back to Moon Rises
Mm-hmm.
to explore some of those things. Because there's definitely a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes that we just never got to.
No, I mean, and that's part of the greatness of RPGs, is things have the ability to keep moving. If you introduce a storyline, the bait isn't taken, and the players decide to go this way instead of that way, well, something still can happen this way, and the players just have to deal with it later. And you know, that's fine. It makes for a good story. And yeah, it can be tragic of like, oh no, did Blue's family, did something happen here? Did something happen there? What's going on with God, I can't remember the chainsaw trike guys. I don't even uh
Yeah, yeah. Man, what I forget the name. Something Chainsaw Association was the name of the gang. I don't remember off the top of my head. We haven't visited those characters in quite some time now.
yeah, it's been a bit. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but like, did they stay loyal to the city, after, Marina, left, or, did they cut and run? Are they causing havoc and problems within the city that's, causing a problem for, big guy, or who knows? I mean, there's definitely lots of things that can happen. And since we're technically, I imagine we're on the moon, but who knows? We'll have to see what happens. But I mean, we got what, 9 months before that
Before we
can
get back
wind
to
up.
it, it's going to be a little while.
Because I mean, we got Doug's game, which is coming up next. Which tomorrow night we are off the air as we do our session zero, and get all of our characters together and have some questy conversations. But after that, then we're moving on to Steven's game, and I won't reveal any information because I'm not at liberty to do so. But I've already got my character in line and thoughts of processing and approval to use one of the Nerdarchy created subclasses. So definitely excited to be playing that, and then we'll be back to those bastards. So
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely playing. Like I know very little about the world we're playing in or the game we're playing,
mhm.
but like we had been talking about it, and I'm also going to be using a Nerdarchy subclass. Um, and it's going to be the character is modeled off of one of the monsters we made, the Spell Eater
Oh,
Minotaur.
nice.
So yeah, so this should be a lot of fun. Which I was surprised because I was like, because I know you initially wanted to be a goblin and got vetoed on goblins as a playable race, and I was like, what about Minotaur? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sold on my new idea that I don't I don't care. I mean, I honestly, I was sorting minis. I don't remember exactly how long ago, but I want to say it was weeks ago. And there's a goblin with a pole arm, and I'm like, man, this is a really cool mini. You don't see goblins with pole arms very often. I haven't played an Eldritch Knight, so I was like thinking
Yeah.
down this long line of, playing an Eldritch Knight as a goblin. This could be kind of fun. What if I went kind of against type and just
Oh
went
man, it would
for
be so much better as a rune knight.
well, I mean, I could have gone
So
that way
you can become
too.
like a huge goblin.
That that could have been a thing. So who knows? Maybe I'll go that direction when I eventually make that goblin. Um, but the idea, was to kind of like go middle of the road with my stats, so like everything has a bonus, not be, you know, super off the charts with anything, but then build out from there. I might start out weaker, but I'm not ugly and stupid and any of that kind of stuff that typically goes when you've got a dump stat. Um,
Yeah, I mean I kind of like that when you're using the traditional way of doing stats and
mhm,
you're playing maybe an unorthodox combination.
mhm.
I generally tend to go point by and then go for, instead of having a dump stat, having a stat that's just a 10 or whatever. Because frankly, that actually becomes more unique than
Mhm.
your the quote unquote flaw, because when everybody has it, it's
Right,
not really all that special anymore.
right.
So I know Doug
So
had mentioned a couple times in the chat about you know being the good guys from the player standpoint and feeling like a lot of the players don't want to play the good guys anymore. Um,
yeah, and as we're winding down to our last 15 minutes, that was definitely a point that I was had on my mental to do list to talk about. Is like ultimately we are playing a game that is inspired by mythology and stories where heroic deeds are expected to be met, and sometimes we have games that definitely go in a massive left turn or a complete u-turn, and it's like, well, I was actually writing my newsletter because last week you guys did bad guys, and I made a point to say that there have been times where my players were doing things that were worse than what my villain was doing or was planning on doing, and I'm like, what do I need a villain for? I've got these guys. Like,
yeah. Well, that's funny because like it reminds me. I've told this story plenty of times, but I'll keep telling it because I just think it's
it's funny.
funny. Yeah, I mean, like in my Griffin Gaff game where we hit the Gobelos, and they went out on a scouting mission and are waiting for the rest of the party to catch up to them. So whenever they get bored, they get up to mischief, and they started capturing small woodland animals and getting them high, and then throwing them over the wall of the estate that they're spying on. And I had like planned an evil druid encounter, and it's like, which I ended up doing, but I'm like, he didn't even need to be evil at this point. He just needed to be a druid that liked animals.
I thought you were going to go into the Wayback Machine, back to second edition, where you had a wizard who wound up using charm person to create a brothel.
Nah, I figure that's a long time ago. Like I mean, the way we played games then compared to now is so completely different. And like in our group, like even in like that specific example in that group, it wasn't even that they were particularly bad or evil. They tended to be more mischievous than anything,
Right.
right? They weren't malicious. They were kind of more like pranksters. Um,
And that kind of thing does have the ability to spiral out of control as players decide, oh well, you know, I've already done this. What's next?
yeah.
So you kind of have to keep pushing that line and pushing that line, and then what happens. So yeah, and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus and what have you. This was back in second edition when you did that. So that was more than 20 some years ago that you did that, and we've clearly evolved as players ourselves as to what we find acceptable at the table. And nowadays, if somebody told me, hey, this is what I want to do, I tell them find another GM. I'm not role playing that particular game. That does not interest me as a GM.
Well, now that being said, like I would be willing to run that game, but I feel like I am better equipped to do it now. Like back then, like we didn't have the same tools in our toolbox as we do now, right?
Right?
Like
Yeah.
um if someone were to start some kind of nefarious operation in my game now, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. So it's going to be a little bit of a different game. It's going to be intrigue and politics
Mhm.
and crime wars and rival gangs and stuff like that. You can kind of have a lot of fun with it
If you
in
got,
that way. And also, like, I feel like that our groups, and I don't know, that our groups is necessarily unique, but I think our table tends to like to play the good guys.
mhm.
Even when we get some characters that are doing some weird stuff like the Gobblers, at the end of the day, like, ultimately they want to do good and do right. Um, Even in the game that you're running with my character and Ryan's character,
It's mostly Ryan's character.
well, yeah, so like he does like kind of outlandish things, but he generally, like, those characters generally want to do the right thing. But in that case, it's funny because they don't generally want to do the right thing for the right reason. Like, but they end up doing the right thing. Like, yeah, they're on a quest really to that they're not going to be able to accomplish, but they want to fix the world because it's been broken. But they don't want to do it because it's been broken and you should fix broken things. They want to do it because they hold a grudge against the guy that broke it, and they're like, "Well, guy's dead, but how can we piss him off beyond the grave?" And it's like, I know, we undo what he did. So in that instance, like, those characters are trying to do the right thing, but not necessarily for the right reason.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy. Occam is great. He is you know you can rely on him to go in particular directions. But when push comes to shove, he's the one that gets right in evil's face and fights it. So
yeah, well, it's funny too because even like over the course of the campaigns that we played, like, that character's always been kind of crude and crass, and he's played him as like a womanizer. But now, he's kind of starting to evolve where he's actually trying to like court somebody for real. Uh, Now is the point where we should like have some episodes where that comes to the forefront, but then you like have his past come back to haunt him, where like jilted lovers show up and
well, I mean there are some notes that I have in regards to Occam, and I don't have her name off the top of my head. But it's definitely something I need to think of because we're playing this weekend. Uh,
yeah,
as Anna Rutledge, maybe. Um, but I mean, she's near completion of her training, so who knows where things will lie down that particular path. It might let things lie and let you guys get involved in Fey affairs before nonsense begins happening here. So who knows?
maybe we can work that into the Fey nonsense.
Well, that's possible too.
Just throwing out some fodder for you, Ted. But
I
anything is possible where the Fae are involved. I also especially feel like that's where you get into some mind muckiness.
That is entirely true. There's a lot of fun things. I mean, we're basically just kind of starting the second arc within this particular campaign. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly where all of the pieces fall because the character goals versus where I see things going are, in two vastly different directions. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, I mean, that's one of those things. We'll figure it out as we go. Also, like, I want to say too, like, in that particular game where like me and Ryan are playing the more off color type heroes,
Mhm.
that even though the characters don't always seem to have the best intentions in mind, like, us as players steer them, even if it's kind of like unwittingly, to do the right things,
Absolutely.
so that, for one, so it still gels with the rest of the party and you have cohesion, and it's not at odds. And two, because as GMs, I think both of us can appreciate the fact that you know we know you as a GM want to tell heroic stories with your players, And so we want to accommodate that, even if we're kind of like doing it in our own way.
Well, that comes back to that concept of, even if you are, not designing your character completely to be, I am the paladin, I am the upfront hero, and yada yada. Buy into the story. Find a way of how you can be the good guy. Are you unwittingly the good guy? Do you do things by accident? Well, I didn't really mean to go do this thing, but you know what? Princess got saved anyway. There's ways to go down that path and have fun with it, so that you are still stretching your role playing legs, if you will, and doing something different than the hero's hero. Um,
Well,
but
also too, it depends on the game you're playing in. So, like, we're not saying you can't play other ways and not be heroes, but everybody should be on the same page.
yeah,
You know, it should be something that you do with your dungeon master, not to your dungeon master, and vice versa, right? So it's all about everyone having the same expectations, and also, like, I think in a roundabout way too, we're also kind of saying is, you know, my character wouldn't do that is like the laziest freaking excuse for anything in the game ever, right?
yeah.
Like, figure out why your character will do that, or come up with a character that will do that, so that we can all do the game together.
It's a cooperative story, and I've been in games where literally we had the GM and the players all interacting together, and then there was one player off to the side, never interacted with any of the other players, didn't talk to them, did their own thing for the entire session. And it was like,
Yeah.
why are you here? Like, what are you looking to get out of this? And
Like, they think they're being dark and mysterious, and like, you're like, no, you're just kind of being a jerk off, really.
so like, you're going to be who you are, in game and out of game. But not every time can you have a session zero. But if all of a sudden you realize you brought a character to the table that's not meshing well, if it's a one shot, well, find a way to change the personality of what you're playing. Oh, I'm sorry, I was just jesting. This is really who I am, and get into the story, so that you're not mucking things up. Or if you're playing a campaign and you really don't want to take this character down that road, ask the GM if you can switch characters and play somebody else who is going to interact with the other players, is going to interact with the story. Like, these are
Let's
things
face
that
it, man. These are lessons we learned from Sesame Street, right? Like, you had the four boxes, right? And like one of them was the kid doing their own thing. Well, then, like, if you show up to the game and your box is different than all the other boxes, then maybe you should change your box to be more like the other boxes, so we can all do the thing again. Like, maybe your idea is a really good one too. It's just not like this just isn't the game for it.
yeah, that's 100%. Like, there is a time for every type of character, and it might take you a long time before you find the table that character is really going to fit at. But mesh with the table, mesh with the players, because let's face it, in the end, the people who we choose to sit down and game with should be people that we should be comfortable enough around to hang out with for several hours, because that's what we're choosing to do, right?
Yeah.
So whether you're playing remote or playing in person, at this point in time, you're choosing to spend time with people. And if you are choosing to take someone's time and not interact with what is going on, it's it can be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, and we've talked about like the character Giles in the one game that I ran where like his whole shtick was he didn't want to ever do any of this stuff, and his character wouldn't do that, except for his character always did do it. He just griped and complained about it as he did it, and just became like these fun role playing moments at the table, that added to it as opposed to taking away from. And that's the other thing. Like, can you tweak your idea so it still stays the same, but you figure out a way that it does work and why they would, interact with the group. And, and really, I guess what we're really just talking about is like just being a good guy at the table, right? Like, and engaging with the rest of the players, and just, good group cohesion in and outside of the game.
I think that's a great point and a great way to end it.
So, with that, we will be back next Monday for these. I'll be back here tomorrow at noon. I believe I'll be on with the YouTube channel Twisted Tentacle Tavern. So we'll be talking about some D&D and whatnot. We got some more great guests lined up for the week. We're starting something new where we're not doing Wednesdays for the noon chat, only because me and Ted will be going back to filming in person. So we've both been vaccinated. Our time's gone by. So we'll be doing the videos the way we used to do them in the past, pre-end of the world. So that's going to feel really weird.
Yeah, I realize I've got till basically this time tomorrow to have my my space resolved to be able to film in it again.
Well, no, you have an extra day. Tomorrow, Wednesday. So tomorrow's Tuesday.
Yeah, but I got to get up Wednesday morning and work.
Oh, well, that's true. if you must, yeah. So again, tomorrow night we're doing session 0, like Ted said, but that's not a stream thing. And then after that, we're gonna kick off a whole new adventure series on the channel here, where Nerder Doug is gonna be running the Quest RPG, and we're gonna kind of be doing Ingest Quest, which is a Spelljammer food centric campaign. I don't know, which was something that was run several years ago, and it was a lot of fun. People had a great time with it and seemed to really enjoy watching it. So you'll be able to check that out.
There's 12 episodes over on the main channel. There is a watch list if you want to go grab all of them.
Yeah,
they're about 2 hours long, so you can consume it.
It's also, I believe, the first appearance of Puffin Forrest as a real person, not his little cartoon character, who is also in that game. So you can check that out as well.
And Ben does a fabulous job as Nub Dub.
Yeah, I guess when we start up the Ingest Quest campaign too, we'll have to link to the playlist. So if people want to see what happened previously, they can check that out. So with that, until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.